Hello, my name is Marcus and welcome to Tabletop Reviews, where today I'm having a look at the two-player game War Chest. Another two-player game, yes, it's the second to last two-player game that I have in my collection. So, anyways, today I'm on a playmat for some reason. I don't know why. This is probably because we played Costa Rica recently. We needed this playmat for that. Yeah, anyways, let's get to the table and see how it's set up and played. Alright, let's get the setup. There's enough lighting on it, I think, so you can see it. But we open this one up, we have some cards. We have a bag, one with a wolf, one with a raven. We have actually two of each, but we're only going to use one of each. We have the rule book, set that aside. The board, and then we have these BOTs, poker chips. I'm setting it up on cloth today, I don't know why. It's probably going to be in the overview as well. I'm doing the setup before the overview. And you'll know it. That doesn't make sense. Anyways, here's the main board in here. We have wolf on this side and raven on this side. Just going totally randomly. Alright, then we have some cards here. Now each player needs 4 cards. There is, of course, in the rule books, 4 cards to be distributed to each player for your first game. But after that you can do a draft where you draft 4 cards, or you can just do a shuffle like this and 4 cards for each. Now, of course, I'm just gonna focus on the ravens here today and show you everything through them, but of course it's just mirrored to the wolves. Anyways, you will see the setup here. You kind of put them down in front of you. Let's start by putting them in here just to show. In case one of the cards here, so this is a crossbowman, it says right here. This is the symbol, and if I just bring out the chip over here, you'll see that is the symbol on the chip. So that's what you're looking for, and then there is 5. You can count up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's correct. So that's one of my soldiers that I'm going to have. And then here it shows visually the tactic you can use, and also describes what it does. So let's put all of these down here. What else do we have? We have a footman, a knight, and a royal guard. Okay. That's actually interesting. I don't think I've ever played with the royal guard. It somehow has not been in play yet. I just place all the chips over here. I used to do I like to do. And then a footman. Bam. And then you will also need these chips right here, which has your symbol. This is of course the raven. This is the back. This is the back of all the chips. Those you're also going to need. The wolf is of course going to need his. Bam. Alright. And then, final bit of setup, you're going to need these right here. These are your control tokens. You start off over here. And the wolf starts over here. Basically the game is all about getting rid of your control tokens. How we do that I will of course get to soon enough. Now let's grab my raven tokens, and then 2 of each of these tokens. And that's my starting bag. Just to see what this guy over here is going to have, just to see. Yes, I thought so. So this is his starting hand. Now you might notice that there's 5, 4, 5, 4. It's pretty decent, but this is overall us. It's 5, 5, 4, 5. Now that's only 1 chip's different, but it is entirely possible that the guy over here had a complete hand of 4s only here, for example. And thereby meaning that he would now, and we would have a complete hand of 5, and we would now be, well, 4 chips ahead. And that's actually quite an amount. So there's a little bit of that, but it's very unlikely that it's going to happen. Anyways, we have here our starting hand of chips. Now this one is the initiative token. Basically meaning who starts. You can kind of flip it over and see, and it was raven luckily. That's what I want to start. Basically, a round starts by drawing out 3 chips from the bag. Trying to hide them away from your opponent here. This was my starting hand. And with the chips you can do one of 3 things. Well, you can actually, well, obviously you have 3 chips, and each chip you can do one of 3 things with. You can play it onto the board here. So that's basically just playing it on one of your control tokens. That's sort of also where you summon your cards. So you can summon one here, bam, summon the Royal Guard. Now, if I had another one in hand, right, let's say I had another one in hand, I could bolster it. So now he has 2. This is not more strength, this is more life. Because when you attack, you lose 1 life. If there's only 1, well, this soldier is now off the board. But if there's 2, you you still have him. You still have him there, and he can't really, depending on what your opponent has, it's unlikely he's going to get attacked twice. So it's sort of a fail-safe, right? Then you can deploy a chip face up. Now, for this one, I'm going to once again need this one because it's the one that I have in here. Bam, face up. That is basically saying I'm going to use my man in here. This could be to attack, it could be to move, or it could be to use the tactic. So what is this tactic? Let me just see. Discard the royal coin to move the royal guard. Attack, you may remove the royal guard coin from the supply rather than from its unit. This is interesting. So this is when this is attacked, I can remove a coin from over here rather than from here, right? So I still have him on there even though I have one. That's an interesting thing here that I just checked. But yeah, basically just put him here, move him. Or put him here and attack if my opponent had, what does he have? He had the scout. So let's say the scout was here, I put him in here, attack him, bam, he's dead. And he actually returns to the box. So it's a bad thing to get attacked. I'll use this tactic. This tactic is basically just moving, but like the knight can only be attacked by units that are bolstered. So basically you need a 2 strength unit like this to attack a knight. If it was just this, it can't be attacked. It has to be this. Using an example of my own chips here. That's an example of an interesting thing here. But then he has a power, this is a tactic. And the footman is kind of good, I can see here. You can perform one maneuver, which is moving around or something, with every footman on the board. So that's, if you have one over here and one over here, you can move both of them, right? Anyways, the next thing you can do is discard them face down. Bam. This can do it for a few things. The one thing is you just pass. You just pass your turn. Another thing is you add in this one. So let's say I was standing on this one here. Now discarded one face down, I can now add one of my control tokens. Or if my opponent, let's say, had one here and I'm standing there, I could remove it from play. That's something you do by putting it face down. And you'll just be standing here. Now you have a new spawn point, so to speak. Or you pass your turn, or you recruit. So basically you flip one face down and you say, okay, I'm gonna now grab one over here. I have a guard in there, so I probably would want a guard into my discard pile. I was about to put it in my bag, but it's into the discard pile, which is over here. And then once your bag is empty and you have to draw out, and you can, right? Let's say I could only draw up one chip, and it's like, oh no, I can only get one chip. I was actually quite lucky. Well, that's when I take my entire discard pile. It's probably larger by then. And throw it back in here, shake it up, drop the last 2, and then we continue. So just putting in strength just like that. Oh, we're right. Another thing you can do face down is take initiative. So my opponent could take that one, and now he starts. And then there's of course something good about starting the game. Just hold on. I need to get hold of. Well, I can just take this one over here. Now these ones here can only be used face down, like a Joker face down token. We did play once that you could put them face up as a Joker token and be like, okay, well I have a footman on, so I'm going to use it as a footman. But according to rules, you cannot. That was a little bit of a house ruling. Anyways, that's all you do. You try and get rid of your control tokens. The first one to get rid of them win the game. Woo! I don't have an explanation for that. You just have to live with it. Anyways, one thing I forgot to mention is that 2 of your control tokens are removed from a 2-player game because the spaces on the edges are for 4-player variants of the game. But again, this to me is very much a 2-player game, like Crimson Company, right? Or Tic-Tac-Toe for that matter. Obviously, war chest, you're kind of thinking chess maybe, going immediately into that one. Talking about the gameplay, of course, into this one. And definitely is sort of that vibe you get, this thing where you have a very non-thematic, I can't remember what the name is for that, unfortunately. But again, where the theme doesn't really matter, and yet it sort of really does. Of course, I'll talk about theme later. But very much reminds you of chess, where you can. But there's one movement, but then you have the tactic to change it up a little bit. Some of them just have an ability, some have tactic and ability, some of them just have a tactic to utilize. It's very interesting. You also understand why 4 cards you start with are the 4 cards you start with. I actually believe that it's actually these 4 right here that you start with. I'm not 100% certain, but I believe it is. Maybe it isn't. No, who knows? I can't fully remember. You start with these 4, and they are the very simple ones. They have a simple tactic. I think it's like, you know, you can move a little further. You can move 2 spaces. You can move and then attack, or attack then move. Right. So very simple ones, and then you get into the little bit heavier one. So the roller guard was sort of interesting. The desk guy was sort of interesting. I can't remember what he's called, the footman, whatever. He's not starting, so it's not these 4 that are starting. But the thing with moving all of them, a little bit more interesting, a little bit more sort of strategic. Like, I have these ones, how am I going to try and utilize them? But then you still have the luck of drawing only 3 out of the bag for every round. So this sort of bag building I'm really enjoying. And I think it's one of the few bag building games that I enjoy, or deck building. I don't really enjoy those aspects of building something up to slowly using it better and better and better. Opposite something like Wingspan, which is obviously engine building, where you're slowly building in more and more efficient turns. This one, you are building something up to slowly utilize it better and better. I have a different feeling from it, although I make it sound is very much the same. But this one, I enjoy the bag building aspect of it because you are only adding more of the same. And that's the thing in many, like Cracks of Quedlinburg, for example, is one that comes to mind of bag building. You are not adding more of the same, you are probably mixing and matching and trying to make this efficiency puzzle, but you can then, you know, just lose based on luck. This one, you're just making more and more of the same, and then you just want to increase, maybe you want to increase your chance of getting the footman, because the more you have on the table, the more you can move, the more you can attack at the same time. But yeah, of course, when a chip is attacked and one is slain, it is removed completely from the game. Not just from your board and just scout pile, it's removed from the game. You're losing men. And I'm going to get back to that in the theme. So therefore, it's very much about going around attacking. Not going around and attacking overly much, more just maneuvering around and picking just the right moments to jab at your opponent. As I said with the guardsman, when you have 2 on it, maybe that's when you are daring to stand in a certain way, which is hopefully going to allow you to maybe survive one attack and attack back the next turn, but not be in close range of other of your opponent's chips. Right. This it becomes very much more of a tactical, how am I going to move around on the board puzzle, and then with the luck of what do I have this round. Let's get into the theme. I love the gameplay of this one. Really, just how I'm going to spend this. Do I want to just build my bag right now and then fire in some men in the final rounds? Do I want to have a little bit on the board right now? How do I want to do this? And at the same time, you can put a man in. Maybe you think that, you know what, this cavalryman, he's really strong. Let's put him on right away, and he just sits still for 3 rounds because you're not drawing up more of him. It's a very interesting thing. Definitely with the luck and the stuff involved. Let's talk a little bit about the theme, because I think obviously in chess where the theme doesn't really matter, you're just moving them in specific ones. It could be mermaids for all I care. This one, I don't think it would work with many other themes. Supposedly it's just battle, right? Because it is this essence of you have some specially trained men, and you do train some more over here, but when you lose some, they are lost. Do not get them back. You can train up some more from your supply and recruit them, but you have lost the man forever. I think that's very, very much a thematic touch. And this thing about slowly moving around, it gets you the feel of not just Star Wars battles, but maybe real medieval battles where you actually care about your men. I don't know if that's historically accurate, but at least that's sort of the feel you get from some medieval movies where it's like, we want as many men as survive as possible. That's the idea of how we're maneuvering around on this board to try and maneuver correctly, to have our men survive and just to win. I also think that's why the win condition is not destroy your opponent, it is control more than your opponent. I also think that's fairly historically accurate sort of thematic. as far as I remember in the wars that I know, of course, there are very much distinct differences. But in the European wars and stuff, sure, you wanted to kill your opponent, but if there was 1,000 men running away, but you just acquired the land you wanted to, you had the control you wanted to, it wasn't often that they chased after those 1,000 men to kill them off. I know this is, generally speaking, from some I've heard, I'm not a historian, there's probably plenty of examples of people chasing after just 10 men to slaughter them. But generally speaking of the historic that I know, it feels like true to some histories. But then you have the little story in here, which is that the chest was given to the king's son so he could learn to be a good tactician. I like that story. It's just a really good story that puts you into the mindset of what this is. It is a tactical teaching game. Not quite. I don't think after a few games of this I'm ready to go to war. Maybe after 100 games of it. Let's see if I reach 100. But very interesting in that one. I think it's very thematic. I very much feel that it's thematic. Maybe some historian will be in a comment being like, nah mate. But I feel it's historical, that it's sort of very thematic and sort of kind of historically accurate. I know it's not 100%, but kind of. Let's talk about the components in here. Oh my god, I love them. I mean, you have the control tokens, which are thin cardboard. They're not the greatest cardboard ever, but they're fine. But then you have those chips that you're moving around, weight to them. You are putting a man on the field, there's weight to him, you're moving him around, it weighs heavy on you. Talking about that thematic again, I can really put some thematic ties to this game. But I love that, it moves around, it feels heavy, it feels good, it looks good, the cards are good, and the illustrations are just, they are simple enough to always be understandable, but at the same time they show all the information that they need to on the little illustrations they have, right? And these ones here, with the colors are not going to be distinct enough for my colorblind friend. Well, he's not 100% colorblind, he has some colorblindness. He's not going to be capable of playing this game based on the colors, but that's luckily when the, I get confused sometimes. I mean, the scout and the soldier down here, to me they look like the exact same color. So the colors are not the greatest, but the symbols are, right? Like even this one and then this other one on here. You can see this horse here and then this horse here. The colors are distinct on this one, but also just the way it looks are distinct enough. When you look at the card, like which one of the horses do I have? I have this one. I can see the difference. So they're simple, very simple, like this is a horse, this is a man, this is a spear, this is the bow and arrow. But they're distinct. You immediately know which one you have, and I love that. And when you have it on the board, even if you aren't with colorblind, the colors meshing together for you, those symbols, those quite simple symbols, you're just going to look and you immediately know that's a swordman I have right there, that's a warrior I have right there, the difference between them. I know it right away, I know it because they are so distinct. I love that, really do. I mean, the artwork is very simple, but it does everything it needs to do in such an amazing way. It just fits thematically the simple artwork. Really love this gameplay and the theme and going into it. The components are amazing. I mean, bag is great. The board, you might have noticed, was pouring up a little bit. That's because it's not quite thick enough, so it's still bending. The board, I think, in components wise, is the only one that I would complain about because it doesn't go flat right away. But other than that, I don't really have component complaints. I mean, gameplay, if I was to complain, I would complain about the fact that it is, quite lucky, right? You can, as I said, you can sit with one, put them down, and 2 rounds later you still haven't moved them or anything, because you haven't drawn them. Unlikely to have it in the first round where you have this one, but as you build your bag, right? I like to build my bag in the first, going through the bag phase, to have a whole bunch of trips to put into it when it's done. Now we're ready to fight. That's what I like to do. Maybe you are going to do something different, I don't know. I mean, if you immediately move around putting down control tokens, I'm flipped. I'm fucked. But I like to just build out the bag. But then you do have a problem of, okay, I have my OP guy, he's being put down, I want 1 more strength on him, and then he's just going in for it. Then okay, I can put 1 strength on him now, and now he stands still for the next 2 rounds. So it is still lucky, but very different from other bag. But like I was referring to Quacks of Quedlinburg, I remember recently I had a round where I had a whole bunch of buying power, and we played with Herb, which is expansion. I doubled my buying power. I bought 2 tokens in that were really good, and I really built up this bag. I was thinking, yo, I'm so ready for this. Immediately I draw to get 8 of the white things, and now I'm fucked. That is not going to happen in this one. I'm sure you can have an warrior standing still for a little bit, but you are always going to have something to do. You're not going to be dead set. You can recruit more, you can move around, you can just take initiative, so you start the next turn, which is pretty good. I mean, to start the turn, you could win it in that turn. Like, you want to start the turn, I think. So really, whilst there's quite a lot of luck, it is not damning luck that is going to ruin the game for you. It is luck that is going to maybe slow you down a little bit, but it's probably going to happen back and forth between the both of you. So, ups and downs to the luck, the bad building, there's a lot of good aspects for this one. So, does it lie to you? Now, where the heck did I say on this one? Oh, it's a very different one. For 2 or 4 players, 30-60 minutes, ages 14 and up. Well, I think for the starting cards, you could go lower than 14. I mean, this is what it is with ages, right? Why is this 14? I mean, I'm pretty sure. Wild Counts of the West Kingdom here. What does that say? That says 12 and up. This says 14 and up. I've only read the rules. I haven't played it yet. But I would not go lower age on this one than I would on this one. I mean, and that's really the complaint I have about these ages. They don't make sense. Why is this 14? What is the reason behind this being 14? I mean, you're not exclusively killing, you're removing chips. So I don't get that one. You could definitely go lower in this one. I mean, it's just moving around. It's quite simple, so I think you could go lower than that, especially if you've played board games for a long time. Anyway, it's 30-60 minutes. That's fairly accurate, I think. We've only played this 2-player. It does have a 4-player mode, but just like Tic Tac KO with Crimson Company, I'm not going to play this 4-player. I'm only going to play this 2-player. This is the 2-player game for me and my fiance, or someone else, but mostly me and my fiance. But it works at both. And 30-60 minutes, I think, is fairly accurate. I mean, with the rules teach, it was about an hour for us to finish it off with a rules teach. So I think between 30 and 60 minutes, depending on how competitive you are, how tired you are, maybe, it's going to go in. Also, depending on the card you draw. But my score for this one, I think my score for this one is going to have to be a 9. I really like it. I mean, I initially scored it an 8 actually, but I'm going to go into Board Game Geek and change it to a 9 because it is pretty freaking great. I really like it. As I said, the gameplay of the back building, I think the luck aspect is pulling it down a little bit. The board is also, because that's a pretty bad board with all this amazingness. Then you have that bad board. Come on. But yeah, I mean, and then of course a little bit of the luck aspect, and I would probably prefer drafting cards rather than distributing randomly. Start with the starting cards, but then draft cards, right? Flip the token, throw it high up in the air, whatever it lands on is the first person to draft, and you draft like 1, and then I draft 2, and then you draft 2, and then I draft 1, and you draft 1, or something along those lines, right? Then you have 4, right? 1, 1, 1, 2, 2, 1, 1, 1. I think that makes sense. Anyways, yeah. 1, 2, 2, 1, 1, 1. We both start off, we both finish off. It's good. That's the way you should do the drafting. You could also just do 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. But that would put me at a disadvantage if I was the second player, right? Doing this way, you are going to, you're going to be good. Maybe it should be 1, 2, 2, 2, 1. I don't know. I'll let you decide it on your own. That's just my my advice, so to speak. But as War Chest, it's staying in my collection, of course, for now. To be honest, the 2-player games, I've just gotten rid of multiple Crimson Company, and someone also talked about that in the recent reviews. They are gone now. So most of the games that I showed in the games that I leave my collection thing, they are gone from my collection. And this one is staying for now, but it's It might not, but I really like the game. I would never say no to a game of this. We'll see how long it stays in my collection. It's staying for now. Unfortunately, the thing with these two-player war kind of game, war-esque games, they don't really often survive. Like, they don't often survive, but it's a really good game and I really like it. I would absolutely play it more. Anyways, thank you for watching today's episode of Tabletop Reviews. Until next time. Bye!